Hello, everyone. Surprise for you guys. Today we have Bryce Griffler here. Fortunately, I met him in a training that we are taking together, right, Bryce? And then we are gonna realize how different can be a conversation about safety and how diverse it can be. Usually, we are also always discussing technical stuff, maximum psychological safety, but today we are gonna go further. I promise you guys. So, Bryce, thank you so much for joining us. I know you're currently working in a globally recognized organization, but we are not here to discuss your employer or any internal practice. We'd like to keep this conversation focusing on your personal journey that is beautiful, your public work with safeties for everyone, and a broader relationship between inclusion, psychological safety, and operational safety. So thank you for accepting this challenge.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Hugo. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, yeah. So how do you describe your journey from engineering and EHS to safeties for everyone?
Well, I started my education in engineering. I'm fascinated and really enjoy when things have a proper place, when there is a very clear answer, which is very ironic and a bit of foreshadowing there, when things go one way or the other. And often in engineering, when we run our calculations, there's often one right answer. And I did that engineering thing. I worked in a career for about 7 years, design engineering and nothing to do with safety. I creeped a little bit closer as I got into safety engineering and human factors design, which was my concentration. But wasn't until I had the opportunity to move into environmental health and safety. I had zero interest in it, Hugo. It was more a matter of the fact that the organization I was working for, a large high-risk manufacturing operation called BAE Systems, they recognize there's opportunity to keep this talent here, even if it's not still within engineering when I was looking to leave. And so they moved me into environmental health and safety, which forced me to quickly learn about environmental health and safety. And at that point, we started to deviate from this very clear yes or no. In the United States, there oftentimes is a very clear yes or no. We have 29 CFR 1910, the OSHA Code of Federal Regulations, and you're either meeting the minimum requirements or you're not. So there's often a yes or no, but then there's that gray area of risk assessment and risk mitigation. And we can find it's yes and we can start to find alternative means to mitigate risk, which was interesting to start to see a deviation from what I'm traditionally used to and comfortable with. And so during that time was also afforded the opportunity to step into a role as an advisor to the CEO on diversity and inclusion, which similarly was something I had no interest in, but was just a matter of circumstances and a matter of a sense at work that I had nothing left to lose. I didn't have strong connections or strong aspirations at this company, and as a minority myself, I figured, what is the worst thing that could happen? And so similarly, I learned a lot about the value of not just having diversity, which we just have. Diversity just exists in our workplaces and our communities, but the intentional inclusion behind diversity, which was really interesting to see that there's actually a business correlation and even a safety correlation. If we are more intentional about being engaging and inclusive, we have employees who are more productive. We have employees who are safer, employees who are more likely to raise their hands. And so I recognized in that moment, I really enjoy helping others experience what I call their aha moment, their moment where something clicks in their mind of, okay, so it might be different from what I'm traditionally used to. And I think that's what I'd love to talk with you about today is some of the things that we have always been taught to fall in line and to be a certain way from the time we were raised may not be the best approach to drive the most impactful safety measures in our workplaces.
Perfect. As I mentioned offline, I also have a global position here as a BIPOC leader, and it's also something that I had no idea before. And then when I started digging in, it really started to make a lot of sense for me. But yeah, so it was good that they find you and that you love this and then you are taking this to a high level. But what made you realize that inclusion and authenticity are not separate from safety, but part of it?
Yeah. Well, so I've had the privilege to work at a number of organizations, both different industries, right? Industries like Amazon.com, logistics, large logistics companies, and then getting into tech, Amazon Web Services and Google. And it's very clear to me that people who are more comfortable, they feel safer to raise their hand, to stop work, to say, hey, I know I haven't worked here for that long, but I don't think that looks right. I don't know what's wrong with it, but I don't think that looks right. That is what drives a safer workplace, and people are not going to naturally, organically step outside of their comfort zone, especially when they're new, whether they're new to a team, they come from a different industry. People are not, do not have an affinity towards taking that interpersonal risk. And that's, being safe to take interpersonal risks is the definition of psychological safety. And so for me, I think the recognition that there was a business case first came from when I was presenting to senior executives. And rather than lean into the data I was sharing at the time, which was a more inclusive organization is a more profitable organization. We have the data to say that if we are more inclusive and engaging, we make more money. And businesses are out to make money.
Yeah.
The leaders were outright disregarding that and focusing more so on, yeah, but what is Bryce's ulterior motive? Why is he talking about inclusion? He, in America, he is a white man. Why is he talking about inclusion? And so in that moment, it made me realize that being your authentic self and leaning into those aspects and those backgrounds and the culture, your socioeconomic status, your veteran status, your disability status, bringing all of those to work is what you were hired to do. And that's what makes you great. Instead, if I say I fit into this box, I'm actually going to end up limiting what I share with others, and that's going to stifle innovation. So I think it was a number of things, Hugo. I don't think there was any one particular moment. Of course, that one moment with that senior leader when I was giving a presentation to the CEO's direct reports, that really stood out to me because I had just finished sharing a bunch of data and they didn't want to focus on the data. They wanted to focus on me, the white man. So that one stands out to me. But there were a number of things that culminated across all of these industries that I've worked in that made me realize there is a need for safety is for everyone. This company that I started, that I co-founded with a business partner to foster those uncomfortable conversations. If we have the uncomfortable conversations, we as leaders can grow.
Bryce, you worked and still work for some of the companies that is a dream job for many of the safety professionals, and you are describing something big that you created with this business partner. Would you say that you called the attention of those companies because you did what you done before, or you done it after being in those companies? So what was the order?
I think it's a yes. I think it's yes. I think it's both. I
Both.
don't think it's any one thing. Again, speaking to bringing your authentic self, that is all of me. I think what may have attracted me to these companies and attracted the companies were attracted to me was the whole package of this is the background, the technical safety, working in global organizations, deploying global safety management systems was very attractive, and me speaking so openly about what are traditionally uncomfortable topics was perhaps attractive to them. So it's a yes and I would imagine.
Yeah, the same happens to me. I probably refuse a job offering like once a week, once a month at least. And people are always directing me messages saying, "Hey, you are crazy. You are talking about dangerous stuff." And say, "Oh, okay, the market doesn't seem to agree with you guys. So I am what I am, and I'm not here to make anybody happy, just to be authentic." So uh,
And that's a
that's
lot.
a
That's
good
that's
hint for
bold.
people to realize because they try to look like the companies will notice them, but it's the opposite. Being yourself is gonna call their attention, in my
Yeah,
opinion at
it's
least.
very bold of you.
Yeah. So, Bryce, what was this realization more personal in the beginning or more professional, would you say that this click to you? It was something
Uh,
that personally before already was something that was like messing with your mind, or it was this after being a professional?
Yeah. Hugo, I think in our training, something came up similar to this. And what I equate it to is somebody finds something that they really enjoy. They find a church that they really like,
Yeah.
that congregation. They find
In
a
Brazil now it's running.
community.
People are in love of running.
Yeah, I love running as well. I
Yeah.
just finished exercising, and so everyone finds that something that they love, and they turn around to others and they start wanting to share. You have to come to this youth group that I joined. You must come to this social club. Please come to my church so you can see how amazing it is. You should run with me because it's fantastic.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's great for those people, but it's not a one size fits all. And so for me, I think when I started to hear those smatterings and then went for myself to go through these all of these trainings on diversity and inclusion and understanding the data behind it, I wanted to share how great it was to take the dive, how great it was to step outside of my comfort zone, to relocate halfway across the country and experience a completely different work culture. I wanted to share it with others. You must try relocating. You must try joining a different department, a different company, and seeing how eye-opening it is. But I was not going to change people. I was
Yeah,
not going to magically make people change the way they approach their lives. After all, it is about your livelihood and making money, and people want to feel safe and secure in making money. And so I fell back on my engineering mentality and said, well, what is the data? And I found tons of data to suggest that if somebody feels comfortable to be themselves, to be openly lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender in the workplace, to lean into and call out when there are biases around women in the workplace, right? So, whereas a male is called assertive, the same behavior a female may be called aggressive, and calling out those biases and leaning into them. There's so much data to support this. And that's when I realized, okay, I cannot change people, but can I find unique, creative ways to share the data that makes people want to just begin to question their own approaches, their own leadership styles, their own mentality. And I started to see it work in my sometimes unorthodox or unconventional ways of presenting. I started to see people have those aha moments, the moments where things clicked in their mind. It's not an overnight change, Hugo. People are not going to magically become someone different. And the goal is not to change them. After all, we want people to bring their full selves to work. The goal is for people to maybe adjust their lens, right? So I see the world a certain way through these glasses. If I take my glasses off, I see the world slightly differently. And that's not a bad thing, but recognizing that the glasses do that to me is perhaps what makes me the most agile type of leader that you can see.
exactly. So when you say safety is for everyone, what exactly do you mean? So what does everyone include that safety programs traditionally doesn't?
Yeah. So originally, I intended to set out to speak to safety professionals about
Okay.
inclusion, right? And the name of the organization speaks to that. Safety is for everyone. Absolutely, we can talk about it. And I came to realize it was more than just safety professionals that could benefit from these unorthodox conversations. I came to realize that there were large groups of communities that could really truly embrace adjusting their own perspectives. And so instead of safety as we know it, I consider in this regard, safety is more about risk. So every day we take risks. You and I know that, Hugo. We talk about that in the workplace. I'm sure every day people here in the United States, we love our cars. Aside from our major cities, everyone in the United States is driving somewhere. You take a major risk when you get behind the wheel of your car every single day. When you go to the coffee shop and you get your coffee, you take a risk as to whether or not that coffee is going to burn you because it was prepared so at such a high temperature. Every day we take risks and we're doing these rapid risk assessments in our mind to determine whether it's safe to proceed. And similarly, we do that with ourselves. And so, myself as a gay man, every single day, I am assessing the risk of, do I openly share with a business partner, with a client, with somebody I met on the street? Do I share that with them? Maybe I don't go out of my way to share it, but if it comes up and they ask, what did you do this weekend? How long have you been married? I see the ring on your hand. How long have you been married? I have to perform that rapid risk assessment almost every single day to determine, is it safe? And we are all doing that in our lives for a number of aspects and um, uh, you know dimensions of our own diversity. I shared with you, diversity just exists. Even if we all went to the same school, we all grew up in the same area, there's still lots of diversity in how we were raised in our background, which means we are constantly assessing the risk of what aspects of myself do I share with others? Again, whether it's at work and I'm risking my livelihood, do I lose that client because I shared that small piece of me? Do I lose that promotion opportunity at work because I showed one aspect of myself? And we are all doing that every single day. So that's what I tie safety is for everyone to, is the perpetual risk we assess as humans every single day to determine if something is safe to share, to be, to bring, to innovate, to create, to raise your hand and say, stop, I have a different idea. I don't think that is the right approach. It's a lot of risk, and we do it every single day.
Have you had any trouble with this authenticity anywhere? Doesn't need to mention where, but there was some situation that were in trouble and you decided to go further and to face it.
Yeah, I can say I've absolutely faced discrimination. I keep here previous um, letters. You could call it hate mail that was mailed to me at work, and it's
Oh,
it's a
really?
pretty thick
Wow,
stack. Yeah. So yes, I have faced it, and it ends in different ways, and I have no regrets for how I have faced it. I certainly look back at some of them. Even one example I will share that a leader approached me. On a random day and said, "Hey, when you were walking around and handing out flags to celebrate a Heritage Month, and one of my employees said no, thank you." They recognize your body language change. They recognize your facial expression change, your body language change just for a fraction of a second. And Bryce, that was not inclusive of you. That was not inclusive of you to have that type of reaction, that lack of acceptance that this person was not interested in the flag for this Heritage Month. And so that is just one example where I look back and go, gosh, I don't even remember my body language changing. I don't even remember my facial expression. I had handed out flags to 640 people that day. I do not remember that. And what a great learning opportunity for me. Self-awareness to understand that my body will react in ways that I don't even recognize and will share about how I felt. I was disappointed, Hugo. I was disappointed that this person in a very visible leadership capacity said, I am not interested in supporting different aspects of diversity. I don't want to openly support that. So yes, I was disappointed, but I thought I did a good job of hiding it. So again, some of these instances where I do have to confront risky areas where people may not be as inclusive, or I've assessed the risk and determined it is not safe for me to share a part of myself. I always learn something different, but for none of those instances do I regret. I choose to instead reframe as they were great learning opportunities, and I'll know going forward. I can't make sure that my face or my body language doesn't do that again in the future. It might do that, but
Probably.
maybe now that I know about it, I can acknowledge it. I can maybe articulate how I'm feeling to that person in a safe way. So there's absolutely a number of instances. I won't get into too many stories, but gosh, I have
Mhm.
many interesting stories about experiences.
This one is really interesting. I don't know if I have put myself in trouble a lot because, as I said, my position also requires some conflict situations. but most of them are more related to race or religion, as I mentioned. But I have noticed something because I was always involved in worldwide in diversion and diversity and inclusion. Uh, Something that I realized mainly for gender, for example, there is a scale that people accept gays. Like I don't know if you notice this, but they say, "Oh no, that's too much gay. I don't accept. You can be gay until here."
Mm.
I don't know if you saw something similar, but there is no limit for the machismo culture. You know, you can be as macho as you want. You can like hurt others. You oh no, but I'm a man. If you are not, if you are sissy, it's not my problem. But for gay, they say, "Oh no, you cannot touch the hand of your husband, or you cannot kiss him in public, or you cannot." But if a macho does whatever, it's allowed. Oh no, it's not. So have you seen have you noticed something similar in your experience?
Yeah. Yeah,
Nothing
there,
related to our conversation. Just remember, as I said, it's we don't have a script, guys. Sorry.
yeah, no, there's so much to unpack there, Hugo. So a couple of things. So first and foremost, what you talked about with race and then religion and then sexual orientation, there's a very important distinction there. So race is a dimension of diversity that cannot be hidden. That is, people immediately acknowledge it.
Yeah,
Whereas religion or sexual orientation are dimensions of diversity that a person can choose to turn down, they can turn up, and where they exist on that spectrum, on that continuum,
yeah,
as you described, it where they naturally exist, it may differ from person to person, but the point is that they can choose to turn it off. Now, um, is that the right answer? Generally not, because I can tell you from my personal experience, it is exhausting,
yeah.
absolutely
I can
exhausting
imagine.
to
I
turn
can
it
imagine.
off because you're putting on a mask and a fake a facade. Um, but then what you were talking about, depending on the culture, the example of machismo culture, that's not only acceptable, that is celebrated, right? The more
Yeah,
machismo you
yeah. They
demonstrate
celebrated.
is
Yeah,
it is absolutely celebrated, and it is culturally driven as well. And so, depending on the dimension of diversity that you're talking about, women as well, you cannot hide
yeah,
that you are a female. You just are. So when you show up to work, these assumptions are made about you. What is expected of you? Machismo wouldn't apply in this particular area, but the amount to which you are expected to be a caring person in the workplace, to practice compassion, to go and look after somebody who's having a hard day or go fetch their coffee is higher because you are a female and you see that.
yeah,
And for machismo culture, it is celebrated. The higher, the more machismo you demonstrate, the more strength you demonstrate, the more you are celebrated. So there are these expectations for dimensions of diversity that you can see outward, but then the dimensions of diversity that can be hidden. You can remove some of those expectations. So it is absolutely fascinating. It is definitely something that you see. People will share things like, I'm okay with you being a Christian as long as you don't share
yeah.
with me in the workplace. I don't want to hear about your church. I'm okay with
Mhm.
you being bisexual. I just don't want to hear about your weekend or your partner. And it might not be the right message for us as leaders who want everyone to be as innovative and productive as possible. Rather, we want people to just be their natural selves, which means they're more inclined to produce, to contribute, to be more productive, more innovative in the workplace.
Yeah, exactly. So I have some issues with this as well because I put myself as a black people, and in Brazil I'm not because of the the tones that so they say no, you are not. I say, hey, it's my decision. I know how I see myself. I guess it's like others, the like politics and religion and gender. It's not what you feel, it's what how people identify themselves. It's not your problem. It's
Mm.
simple to, and the machismo culture here in Latin America is so strong. For example, if you are a handsome man, they say you are gay. If you are not the machismo level they are, you are gay. And if you so it becomes like, so you try to distance yourself from this culture, and you suffer, discrimination and everything. So I really thanks you for being this courageous and to talk about it openly and to more than this, face it uh, from from the beginning, taking all the risks that we both know that it brings to us.
Yeah, we
Congratulations.
we have to take those risks regardless, and now we have more and more data to suggest that's the way our world is going. The way in acknowledging and celebrating all aspects of diversity and not dismissing somebody. Oh, you're not black enough. You are not gay enough, or you're too gay. Oh, that you must fall in line. You must be this level of machismo to pass this point to get promoted. And more we have the data to suggest that's not how we come up with the best engineering solutions in our workplaces. That's not how we advance as a company or as a culture. So we have to take those calculated risks. You and I having this conversation is a calculated risk. Hugo, you determined it would be safe for me to have Bryce on this podcast. And that's a beautiful example of this. And you even alluded a little bit into something called intersectionality, where we have more than one aspect of diversity. I am not just this person. I'm not just an engineer, right? I'm an
Yeah.
engineer who was a bus driver, who was raised Jewish, who is white. I have all these aspects of me, and how those interact with each other is a whole new dimension of diversity as well. So, what you were describing about how you see yourself, how you identify, it absolutely can influence how those other groups view you. And like you said, it's not so much about them, right? Your identity, Hugo, your identity belongs to you, belongs to no one else. And so they may have those expectations, but those expectations and the accuracy and the relevance of those expectations, some of them are slowly going away and becoming less relevant as we have more and more data to suggest the way to go is to embrace this authenticity.
Yeah. So coming back a little bit to some more technical stuff and more safety related, but also if someone does not feel safe enough to be authentic at work, what make us believe they will feel safe enough to speak up about risks and stuff like this? Do you see that there is a cost of the silence?
Absolutely. I think it is a perfect demonstration of it. And so let's take a very simplified example. So if I work at a heavy manufacturing organization, and we hire a brand new maintenance manager, that maintenance manager came from the automotive industry, a completely different industry than this high-risk manufacturing, came from the automotive industry. First and foremost, we have this natural inclination to immediately say, well, that person's different, doesn't have the same background. We have to train them on how we do things here. Already, we're beginning to bias this person. We're beginning to give them some prejudice about how we do things here. But we hired them because of their background. We hired them because of their experience, and then we're taking their experience and shoving it aside while we give them what we expect of them. And that's not the right move, right? We want to say, we've been doing it this way for 15 years. You came from a completely different industry. How do they do it over there? Right? Well, that is a beautiful way to leverage that diverse mindset, that diverse background. And so that is absolutely how it plays out. We want that person to not sit in the corner of the shop or to sit in the corner of the conference room and not say anything because they know that their approach is going to be different. We want them to sit at the table and say, I understand this is the project, this is the solution, this is the mechanism that you all have elected to use. And can I add another thought? May I contribute? May I add just one more thing? And that is when all of a sudden a completely different approach comes to light and we can try something completely different. Now, that's at a manager or a leader level. Even at a shop level, if we have a welder or an assembler who maybe has done something different at a small mom and pop shop, or maybe they learned something different in school because they went to school for welding. What do we need to do to foster an environment where not only do they feel comfortable raising their hand and saying, I think this is unsafe or I think there's a better way, but what do we do to celebrate the heck out of them publicly so that other people say, oh, I guess it's safe to raise my hand. I suppose it is expected of me to offer a different solution. So at all levels of the organization, there's absolutely a clear correlation between that psychological safety, the safety to raise your hand, to make a mistake, to go against the grain, and the person in a leadership capacity to say, thank you so much for bringing that to light. It might not be the right solution, but let's try it. I'm so excited you brought it forward. Let's all try it. Let's talk about it, as opposed to saying, that's not how we do it here. Like, don't sit down. So it absolutely plays out every single day.
Yeah, so many leaders they have that open door policy that we see all the time, but I'm not sure if they are creating the conditions where people speaking is actually safe. Could you talk a little bit about it? Because it's almost you know, they have a flag, they have a logo that says, "Oh, I'm the leader. My door is open always." But it's totally different from create the right environment for people who speak up freely.
Yes.
So I want you to go a little deeper on this.
Oh my goodness, I feel very strongly about this, Hugo. It's like you're pushing the right buttons. I feel very strongly about this. This is a line, an expression that a lot of leaders, a lot of good managers will use, which is, I have an open door policy. And when we say that, for those who are not a native English speaker, the idiom or figure of speech is that open door policy, meaning the proverbial door to their office physically remains open so that anybody can come and raise a concern to them because the door is physically or descriptively open. And simply stating that I have an open door policy, to me is a demonstration maybe of a good leader, but does not make, excuse me, a good manager, but does not necessarily make a good leader. A good manager will say, my door, either an actual door or my virtual door, is always open. A good manager may say that, and then they wait. They wait for people to come to them. But Hugo, who comes to them when they say that is the people who already feel comfortable
Yeah,
or safe to raise a concern, which means it's the same 20% of people
exactly.
over and over, which means you're only getting this limited view, these limited solutions. That's all you get. But a good leader not only says I have an open door policy, a good leader at the end of a virtual meeting will say, Jonathan and Susan, I haven't heard from you this meeting, and I want to make sure I give you the space to offer additional thoughts, right? There's a difference between I haven't heard from you. Why haven't I heard from you? That's very aggressive. That's very attacking. I wanted to give you the space and the opportunity. And we set aside that space because, again, those 20% of people took up 80% of the talking time
Yeah,
during our virtual meeting. They talked and they talked and talked. And we turned to the remaining others, whether it's 80% or more, and say, I wanted to give you the space to talk. And maybe you don't acknowledge it. Maybe you type it in the chat. I want to make sure we allow room, we allow space for these people to contribute. Maybe after a meeting, a physical meeting or a virtual meeting, we message them on the side or we approach them on the side. Hey, you oftentimes have great ideas. You are a member of this team. I'd love to hear your thoughts or your ideas. Do you agree with what was said in the meeting? That person is a leader because they go out of their way to intentionally include others. That is the big difference between a good manager and a good leader. A good manager says, I have an open door policy, and they wait. A good leader says, I have an open door policy and goes out of their way to find as many voices as they can and challenge their own assumptions. That's a big nuance, a big difference. And the more you practice it, the more you recognize you have a whole team you can lead on. And while that whole team, they may communicate a little differently across all of them, especially if you lead a global organization. Each one of them may communicate a bit differently, but when you have them working together as a team, you can lean on them and really be productive.
yeah, great answer. I was expecting something like this from you, my friend. So I did something similar to because most of the companies they say, oh, safety first, so all the meetings they start by safety, but it was long meetings, like 2 hours or more, and usually the people that was like below in the schedule, like for the last or they finished the meeting before. So this person had everything prepared, but they didn't present because okay, we are late. So
Mm.
next week we started by safety as well. So the week later, I said, okay, we are gonna invert the schedule. You are gonna talk first, and I will be the late one. So since everybody was concerned about safety, and they did the meeting on time, and I had time to speak. So I said, oh, and the girl was like, hey, are you sure we don't need to say, and I told her, we are being safe doing this, but we are taking care of the psychological side. It's not only physical safe that we want to create here. And this kind of activities can be prepared for people being, it's more than only say, okay, we are all together, my door is open. So something that you bring that is really important. Bryce, we are heading to the end. Unfortunately, the time flies. I think in the West, the time goes faster. I don't know.
Feels
But
that way sometimes.
what's a real change that a leader can make, like in the next few days, to create a safer conversation? What would you bring us something uh, that can be faced as a priority? So start by this. What would be, in your opinion?
I would say, and we talked about this a bit, Hugo, in our training, open-ended questions. Open-ended questions with the intent to listen and understand. Okay, so that's two pieces. So first is an open-ended question, a good open-ended question. My favorite is help me understand. Help me understand. Help me is a demonstration of I'm not perfect. I don't know everything. Help me. And then understand, not see, not help me see your way. I don't know. Help me understand through my perspective, through my lens, the way I see it. Help me understand. And so whether that's something cultural, right? Help me understand why it's acceptable that you take 3 to 4 weeks of vacation or holiday, and that's acceptable. Help me understand. Or it's on the shop floor. Help me understand why you don't use the work instructions. Help me understand why the risk assessment as it's documented is not valuable for you. Help me understand. And then be quiet and listen. So whether it's a manager or a leader talking with their employees and help me understand, or something on the shop floor where you're having a critical conversation in regards to safety, be quiet and listen. And then when you get your answer, don't respond. Just be quiet a little bit longer and just keep listening because that person is going to keep imparting their own wisdom on how they see the world and their perspective. They're going to keep talking and keep sharing more with you. And if you intentionally go out of your way to try and understand, not just listen, but understand what it is they're saying, it's only going to lead to more questioning and more awareness and cultural competence for you as a leader. That is what will make you a dynamic and agile leader. That's what will make you stand out. You and I talked about this offline, Hugo. The goal is to not join an organization and then fall into their little box. The goal is to how do you stand out just a little bit more in your communities and your workplaces? If you just listen to what others are telling you and then take the time to understand, help me understand, right? Tell me more about why you do it that way. What else are your thoughts about this? And then if they're a little bit uneasy about sharing, you can usually follow up with, I wouldn't ask the question if I didn't truly want to hear the answer, right? Sometimes leaders go out, "Oh, tell me why you feel safe." And we're going to reframe it, right? If your daughter were to come work here tomorrow, tell me more about what the risks are that you would highlight for her, and then help me understand. Say more. I want to understand. That's very interesting. Can you elaborate? And leave it open, and then be quiet and listen. You will understand so much more and be a truly remarkable leader for it.
Simple but not easy.
Yes, well put. Yes, yes, that's well said.
Yeah. So, Bryce, I call this final section as a marketing time. So, I want you to share your context, how Safeties for Everyone can help people to give this first step, where people can find you. Feel free to talk about your company, your work. So, it's your time.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So I co-founded Safety is for Everyone just in recognition of the fact that these uncomfortable conversations, that's where growth happens. And so I love, relish, thrive in opportunities to speak to organizations, whether it's in communities, small and large, large conference events and things like that, to kind of shed a little bit of light and adjust people's perspectives. We know that bias exists. We know that there's opportunity to have these uncomfortable conversations, but sometimes it's just too uncomfortable for us to have on our own in our organizations. And so I look for those opportunities. I partner with organizations, especially for new managers coming in. How do we equip them with what we want them to be, not just what our organization has always been, how we want them to approach unique challenges and conflicts in the workplace, and just talking about again, whether it's bias or diversity and inclusion, imposter syndrome, psychological safety, really unique approaches. I would say, Hugo, what sets me apart, especially for corporate trainings, is I offer anonymous question and answer mechanisms, and that is terrifying. If anyone is in consulting or as a presenter, that is utterly terrifying because you can get any sort of question, but it gives the room, the audience, a safe space to submit some of those questions they've always had, but they've never felt safe enough to ask. And so that's something I pride myself in, is those anonymous questions that will appear right on the screen behind me, live during a workshop or during maybe even a large seminar or a keynote. I look forward to opportunities, again, organizations of all sizes, and we can talk about what works best for each one of them and what they're trying to achieve in line with business objectives.
Perfect. That's it, guys. You ha now had an MBA class with Mr. Bryce Griffler. Thank you so much for the time. I'm pretty sure that everybody's gonna appreciate this, and we are gonna moving forward in the direction of having more diverse and inclusive workplaces for everyone. Thank you, Bryce.
Thanks so much for having me, Hugo.